Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series on Technicality. Today we're going to be talking about how to store, maintain, and clean your PCBs. I've had a lot of questions on how I keep my collection running and how I store it, so I figured why not. Taking a look right here, the first thing I do before I put anything away is I just want to take a look and see if anything's wrong with it. Any bulging capacitors, any leaking batteries. Before you put a board up for storage, you want to make sure you're not putting it away with any issues. So taking a look at all of these capacitors, everything looks really good. There's nothing bulging, there's nothing leaking, because what you don't want to do is put away a board that already has developed an issue, because it's only going to get worse in storage. That electrolytic fluid will eat away at the board, it'll eat away at traces, chip legs, it'll really destroy everything. The same thing with the battery right here, this little coin cell. I just take a look, it's not leaking, it's not bulging, so I can fairly be sure that I can put this away for, 6 months or so and not have to worry about anything going wrong. What I like to do is I use FedEx boxes. A little birdie told me they give them away for free, so you didn't hear that here, but they make excellent storage boxes for your PCBs, and if you have to ship them too, just put together this large box right here. They're extremely sturdy. Now you don't want to stack PCBs one on top of another, it's really not advisable. If you have single boards, you want to stand them up straight, but if you're just using these boxes here, don't stack a ton on top, but they are very strong. And what we do is we have this pink bubble wrap. The pink is electrostatic discharge proof. So basically you can wrap your PCBs in this and you shouldn't have any static electricity going through. I just come in and wrap it up. You can use regular bubble wrap. Honestly, some of my boards are wrapped that way. I had some of this around, so I used it. But honestly, it's not that much more expensive than standard bubble wrap. So if you just want to spend a couple extra bucks, you're good to go. And I just use Scotch tape. You can use different tapes that come apart easier, but since this is the Hyper IO driving board, I don't use it that much. It's really not something I'm going to be accessing all the time, but I do just kind of wrap it up the same way that you would wrap like a Christmas present, because we want to make sure this board is protected, because it is quite rare, and that's kind of what you want to do with all your equipment. Treat it well, and it'll last a lifetime. Treat it poorly, it's going to break, and you're going to be really annoyed by that. And after I've wrapped it up there, I'll just come in one more time, because this PCB is a little bit smaller than the box we're using, and what we don't want to do is have it floating around in there knocking about. We want to make sure it's a tight fit, but not too tight that it's going to bend or otherwise distort the board. And now that we have that little parcel packed up and ready to go, we'll just go ahead and tuck it into the FedEx large shipping box, close it up, and you're going to see that it's a nice fit in there. It's got enough room to move, but it's not floating around too much. And then we just make the box. If you wanted to ship it, you're good to go. You could ship this and I'm sure it would show up perfectly fine. But if this is something you're going to use in your collection, there is no flap to open up. So what we just do is come around the front here, we use that pull to open tab, and we'll just pop the box open, giving it its own flap. And then from there, just like before, I just use Scotch tape, but we'll go ahead and tape that flap shut, so it stays closed when you're not using it, but you can just peel the tape back or otherwise cut it when you want to get back in. Since this is something I use all the time, it's a perfectly fine system. Maybe you want to use some gaffing tape, that way it's a little bit cleaner, but I think this works really well. And at the very end, all I do, since I have a lot of boxes in my closet stored away, is I'll write what's on the side. My handwriting is terrible, but it does read, at least for me. And then if you just take a look here, don't stack your PCBs like this, but I put an M2 on top, and then I put the Hyper on the bottom, and it's not crushing. So now moving on to one of my Konami M2 boards. Before, like I said, I put anything in storage, I just take a quick look and see if there's anything I want to do beforehand, and I notice that there is some dirt in here that's accumulated from storage. So all I'll just do is use a little 91% IPA isopropyl alcohol and some Q-tips, and I'll just come in here and clean out some of that dirt, because it's just not good to store it with it. You want your PCBs clean, so why not clean it before you put it away? And if you have large areas, just use a paper towel. Now I don't use the paper towel on the actual PCB itself, but for all the cage and everything else metal around there that's not part of the working components of the game itself, I'll just come in there and clean it all up. That way it just stays nice, clean. Like I said before, treat these well, they'll treat you well, they'll work all the time. And just to make sure, I always clean the JAMA edge on my boards before I put them away with some IPA and a Q-tip. That way we're just not leaving dirt on them, so the next time you plug them in, they will work. And you see on that paper towel, that's some of the dirt I got up, and I've cleaned this before, so it happens. Around the back, I have already treated this. This got wet at some point in time, and rust is not good. So as opposed to using IPA, just use a little white vinegar and a Q-tip, and you come in there, and you just basically soak all that rust. I've done this before, so I'm not going to do it fully this time, but it'll keep that rust from getting worse. What you want to do is you want to let it sit for 30 minutes, and then you can just wipe it off with a clean paper towel, and that'll inhibit that rust growth. From there, I'll just go ahead and put everything back together and get it ready for the box. And this has a cage on it, so it doesn't need as much protection, but I have this extra large FedEx shipping box with that static proof bubble wrap right there. I'll just drop it in, fold it up like a little Christmas present, and I'll close the box up. And now again, we have another PCB in a cage this time, ready to go into the closet for long-term storage. So when I take it out, I know it's working, ready to go, and it's been protected. Now for my cables and everything like that, I like to use cigar boxes. I get these for $1 a piece and they are quite sturdy. In this one I have my JAMA extension harness, that way I don't have to plug my super gun directly into the boards, and it works really well. I can push down on this thing. Now I could break it if I tried, but it's not going to get this much force in storage. It just sits on a shelf. I think these are great ways to store all your cables. And the second one here, I just have my BNC breakout cables, the things I need to use on my FrameMeister and my DB15 cables, all protected in that box. Now for something like my Hyper Neo Geos, they're already protected. I'm not going to bubble wrap this much, if at all, because it already has this massive metal shield all the way around it. So taking a large FedEx box, you slide that in perfectly fine, and you just close it up like we have everything else before, and I find that this is perfectly enough protection if this is standing up. Now I would probably bubble wrap it if it was sitting on its side, but since it's just going to be standing up in a shelf in my arcade closet, I think it's going to be more than enough to protect this. I know it went in working. I've recently cleaned it. If you want to get in, just rip that zip on the side and tape it back up. But it's protected and you're good to go. And that's how I clean, store, and maintain all my PCBs before I put them away. I make sure all the caps are good, I make sure they're clean, and just take a look around to see if there's any problems with batteries or leaking capacitors I have to deal with. But that's what I do, and it's worked really well for me. I've never had a board break in storage. If you have any questions, let me know below, or any comments. Short of that, thanks so much for watching. If you do us a huge favor, hit like and subscribe, helps us out. We'll be back on Sunday with an episode, and on Tuesday for our mainline series. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great time. Bye-bye.